The trees were bare without their summer dress, and wolves prowled and howled in the distance. The wild beasts snarled in the undergrowth, and pirates sailed villainously up the lake, and red Indians, who were friends of the boys, lived secretly in their wigwams, hidden in the glades of the woods. The Lost Boys, who in their fur coats looked more like bears than boys, were anxiously awaiting Peter's return. There were 6 of them, slightly soiled, the eldest. Then came Toodles and Nibs and Curly and Twins, and they were much like the one name did for both of them. So each was called Twin. They lived like moles under the ground, for fear of the pirates and the wolves. Each one had a special staircase hollowed in a tree trunk, so that they could easily run down among the roots of the trees into their homes. They were playing happily, although they were beginning to be a little anxious that Peter was so long away. Silently and tootling, Slightly was tootling on a whistle, and dancing quite merrily on an ostrich for a partner. Then suddenly a gruff noise of the pirates were heard. Nibs, who was very brave, slipped away through the trees to scout, but the others had only just time to scuttle down the stairs into the hollow tree before the big, ugly buccaneers came trampling and hauling their captain, who was sitting in state upon a sledge. You could not imagine a more dreadful-looking villain than the man who was. His name was James Hook, and it suited him. He had 2 most evil-looking black eyes. His face was seamed with lines which seemed to express his wicked thoughts. His hideous chin, all unshaven, was as black as ink and prickly as a furze bush. His hair was long and black, and it hung around his face in greasy curls. He was singing a horrible song about himself, keeping time by swinging in the air the gruesome stump of his right arm, on which a double iron-pronged hook was fixed instead of a hand. Hence his name. The man was the most wicked pirate who ever lived. He simply wallowed in wickedness. Even his own crew dreaded him, and they were as bad as could be. So no wonder the Lost Boys darted like rabbits in their cave. Now, Captain Hook most of all wanted to find Peter Pan, for it was Peter who, a long time before, in an encounter between the pirates and the Lost Boys, had cut off his right arm and flung it into a passing crocodile. The crocodile had liked the taste of it so much that ever since he has wandered from land to land and from sea to sea, licking his lips for the rest of the captain. The captain had naturally come reason for hating Peter, for he had a dreadful time in excluding the pursuit of the voracious crocodile. But still the beast dodged his footsteps and followed him on land, and on by land and sea, wherever he went. The captain only had got a start when the crocodile was asleep, and with that, in a swift ship, he had managed so far to escape. It was an awful life. Fortunately for Hook, the crocodile had once, in an ill-advised moment, swallowed an alarm clock. Go it did, and it ticked so loudly that the captain could always hear the crocodile coming, and it was the signal for him to bolt. Hook sat down on one of the enormous forest mushrooms to deliberate what his mode of revenge. He was in the middle of a torrent of braggings and boastings when he felt the seat getting not only warm, but much too warm. A little wonder in that, for he had furiously leapt up and found that he had really been sitting on a chimney of the underground home which Peter had cleverly disguised. He realized at once that the Lost Boys must be living in safety down below. Very soon he had a wicked, treacherous plan settled. He determined to cook a huge, rich cake with beautiful green icing and poisoned inside. He was sure that the Lost Boys, who had no mother to look after them, would eat it greedily and die with awful pains inside. Smee, as the captain's wily lieutenant was called, was overjoyed at this plan and chuckled loudly. "Shake hands on it," said Hook, but Smee did not want to, and he begged to be excused. "Paw, Smee, paw," said the captain in an awful voice. So Smee had to take the horrid Hook in his hand, and they both danced around while Hook sang his diabolical grimaces. "Yo, ho, yo, ho, when I say paw, by fear they've overtook, knots left upon your bones when you have shaken hands with Hook." Just as he was gloating over his pleasant scheme, a queer thought was heard, like a corn crake coming nearer and nearer through a barley field. Tick, tack, tick, tack, tick, tack. "The crocodile! The crocodile!" the pirate captain yelled, and in a moment of flying for his life, the pirates had scarcely disappeared into the depths of the forest when the Indians crept silently in pursuit of them. Tiger Lily, their chieftainess, was at their head, and now running swiftly under the trees, now listening with her ear to the ground to know where her enemies had gone. For, like Tinker Bell and Wendy, she loved Peter Pan, and his enemies were her enemies. The Redskins slid along, following the pirates with steps as quiet as those in a beetle crawling through the grass. As they passed, soon far out of sight, then one by one the Lost Boys peeped from their tree trunks, and seeing that all was quiet, came out again with their playground in the woods. But their safety did not last for long. A fierce barking of wolves was heard, and Nip, who was gone off by himself, rushed quite out of breath into the midst of the boys, closely pursued by a pack of lean and hungry wolves with the glittering, fiery eyes. What were the Lost Boys to do in the terrible plight when their leader was so far away? Fortunately, one of them remembered Peter's plans. Whenever he was attacked by wild beasts, Peter used to run at them backwards, jumping along the ground, squinting at them through their legs. The Lost Boys did this all together, and really it was so astonishing that the wolves fled in terrified howls to the thickets where they lived. The Nibs were told that the boys now had seen the loveliest white bird they could imagine. As you know, the story continues, and they find Wendy and Tinker Bell and all the wonderful characters of Peter Pan have their adventures. I hope you enjoyed the story.